Texans-Eagles game, just a fantastic game. Coming into the game, we're thinking, okay, is it another Nick Foles spectacular outing, or is he due for the other end of the spectrum? As great as Nick Foles was in the playoffs last year, in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, do we remember how bad he was in a couple of his regular season starts against the Cowboys Week 17?
We don't.
Against the Raiders. He was horrendous down the stretch, and even his divisional game against the Falcons last year was a lot of luck.
Yeah.
And then he had, you were calling it the most improbable two-game stretch maybe in NFL history.
Yeah. Don't forget Week 1 this year, he also sucked against the Falcons.
Oh, yeah, he was bad.
Right. Yeah. So we were talking about this. I don't know if it's even possible anymore in today's NFL for things to be appropriately categorized in sort of NFL folklore. You know, the way, like the drive, right? We still talk about the drive. When was that, 1987 or something?
86 season, 86
right.
or 87, yeah.
So that is, I mean, realistically, look, as great as the drive was, right, that has happened again dozens of times since that. You know, one game-ending drive, 99, whatever. That's happened a lot of times, right? A long game-ending drive to win the game. It was impressive, but it probably shouldn't be talked about 30 years later.
Yeah.
When you consider some of the other things that have happened, like the Minneapolis Miracle. That's probably not going to last as long as the drive, and that's one of the most ridiculous plays that's ever happened. But this world of like quick instant gratification, then on to the next thing, and everything's over Twitter, it explodes and it's done. I wonder if we're even capable of like effectively placing this kind of stuff in the annals of NFL history.
Well said.
Thank you. So Nick Foles played the Minnesota Vikings on the road. The Minnesota Vikings at this point had the number one defense in all of football. He dominated them, ridiculously so, and then did the same thing in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots when he needed to play big. Like, he played as well as any quarterback has ever played in the postseason over a 2-game stretch against the number one defense in the NFL and in the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Can I read his game grades from last year?
Do.
So last year at this time, Week 16, he gets his second start. His first start is against the Giants. He was 71.7, better statistically than the numbers. Week 16 last year against Oakland, 31.9. That's horrendous. Yeah. Week 17, he only played 19 snaps. We had a terrible interception there, 34 grade. The divisional round against the Falcons, he was a 50. Again, that was the pass where he fires it right to the free safety, and it bounces back to the Eagles for a completion. Then he gets to the NFC Championship, 93.8, which is exceptional, of course, and then the Super Bowl, 92.3. It was the Foles coaster is unbelievable. And again, first week this year against the Falcons, he's in the 50s. And then, you know, when you see him against the Rams with a 75.6, and yesterday we don't have his final grade in there, but it was well above average. And it's just the plays that he can make in crunch time and down the field to the point where Eagles fans are actually debating him or Wentz, which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
But remember Wentz was an MVP candidate last year?
Yeah.
Those 2 game grades that Foles had in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl dwarfed anything Wentz put up there from a game grade standpoint last year or this year.
Yes.
So his individual game grades are at the highest end of the high.
Right. Like, I just think that if he'd done that back in the 80s, this would be something that lived in NFL history forever.
Yeah.
We'd be talking about Nick Foles, this insane hero, folklore hero.
Well, I was joking. What if
the end of time?
Everybody likes to use the Eli 2 Super Bowls. That's why he's getting in. That and the fact that he just doesn't miss games, so he accumulates stats, right? What if Foles went on another Super Bowl run this year? Is he just instantly in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Oh man.
I mean, he has as good a case as Eli if he does that.
His
same
stretch
thing,
was
right?
better than Eli's.
Yes, but shorter.
Yeah, and he only did it once.
Yeah. So if he does it again, given the hole the Eagles were in when he came in, like and is the same percentage of responsible for it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't win last year without him playing that well. Like, he was absurd.
Oh, of course.
He would have to play absurd and be the reason.
They gave up 33 points in the Super Bowl.
Right. He would have to play that well and be the reason that they won again for the second stretch.
Foles,
if he did it again, that would be completely ridiculous.
Foles also, interestingly enough, has one of the greatest statistical seasons of all time in 2013. That was Chip Kelly's first year with the Eagles. Now, his PFF grade was 78. showing 83 passing grade, showing that he wasn't as good as the numbers would show. We've been saying this for a while, but he had 29 touchdowns or 28 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 27 and 2. Sorry, I'm looking at the playoff totals too. 27 and 2 during the regular season, passer rating up near 115 plus. I mean, it was an incredible season. It was a very good statistical season. Foles is just fascinating, and the fact that he's even put himself in the conversation where some Eagles fans, I don't know, I haven't heard from all of them, are actually debating Foles versus Wentz. And then you have a game like yesterday. It's another shootout. He's got to make plays when it counts, and he will, just like we said last week, he will stand in the face of pressure. He took a massive hit, gets hurt at the end of the game. Nate Sudfeld had to come in, but he is tough in the pocket, tough under pressure, and maybe it is that old Josh McCown, Sam Bradford obliviousness to pressure. When you just stand in there and make plays, some years those passes look horrible because you're like, what are you doing, you idiot? And then other times you make great plays, and that's like the fluctuation of what happens under pressure.
I mean, we've said before that I think he might be the single most high variance quarterback in all of the NFL. Like going into a given week, you could get the best quarterback in the NFL, or you could get a disaster. And I don't know if there's a good way of predicting which one's going to come.
I got a good one for you real quick.
Having said that, we are starting to lean towards the good side, right?
Yeah.
He is taking away these games where in real crunch time where you need him to actually play well, he's playing well. And we haven't had the implosion for a while.
Here's where the implosion might come, because this is unsustainable. This year, under pressure, he has a higher passer rating than he does with no pressure.
Yes.
83.8 versus 81.1. And the PFF grades are similar. No pressure, he's a 71. With pressure, he's a 69. It's very, very close. So the pressure stuff's usually difficult to sustain.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what's just really interesting about this run. So the implications of this game, and this is where you have to love the NFL. It's a playoff game, essentially. The Texans are fighting for their life to get not only into the playoffs, but to get a first-round bye, which they were in line for yesterday until the loss. The Eagles have to win out to have a shot at the playoffs, and they played the Rams and the Texans. I saw somebody say this is the first time they've ever beaten a team that has at least 10 wins in back-to-back weeks, which isn't that crazy because how often do you face two 10-win teams late in the season?
Back weeks, yeah.
But it was very, very, it's a clutch couple weeks for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And that was a really fun game to watch. Watson was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, that offense continues to confound, right? It remains that Deshaun Watson and Nuke Hopkins and basically nothing else, and it remains enough. Like, it's ridiculous that functions. One quarterback, two wide receiver hookup in the face of everything else being bad should not produce a successful offense.
Yeah.
It should basically be impossible, and yet those two continue to make it happen right down to that play at the very end of the game. The go-ahead score. Deshaun Watson evades, I think, at least 4 clear missed tackles in the backfield by Eagles defenders, including, I think, by Brandon Graham, who didn't get a sack in that game.
He had like 9 or 10 pressures.
11
pressures.
I haven't checked the updated numbers.
Man,
but
this
yeah,
is
11
not good
pressures,
for my
no sacks.
Not good for my brand.
Anyway, escapes like 4 clear misses, tosses the ball, touchdown. Texans go ahead. It looked like that might have been enough to steal the game after, who was it, the fumble? Zach Ertz? No, Josh Adams fumbles the ball basically when the Eagles were trying to ice the game away. Put the game in jeopardy only for Nick Foles to execute his own comeback. But again, it's that Watson, it's ridiculous. It should not be working, and yet it somehow is.
Watson, he was very good against the Jets last week. He was excellent in this game, and he's starting. I think this is where you have to start giving him credit. I mean, he is doing this with only Nuke Hopkins and a poor offensive line.
I mean, I am
and
giving
he's
him
throwing
credit.
to Limestone College.
Working.
Limestone College receivers. Is that what it is?
Yeah, sounded right. Yeah.
Limerick College. Where do you go?
Limerick. Limestone. I think you're right. Limestone College.
So that's the thing. When you talk about Breeze's MVP candidacy, he's throwing to some guys people have never heard of. Mahomes, while Tyreek Hill is beautiful, Mahomes is throwing. He's just throwing guys like Demarcus Robinson. Oh, he's just throwing dudes open.
Yeah.
Watson's starting to do that now too, and when you start producing, regardless of who's out on the field, that's some special stuff. That's what Watson's been doing these last few weeks.
By the way, the guy from Limestone College, his name is Vincent Smith.
Right.
Vincent this is the most creative spelling of Vincent I've ever seen in my life. Vyncint. Vincent.
It's a good Vincent
Yeah.
name.
But yeah, Limestone College. I agree. I'm giving Deshaun Watson all the credit possible. I mean, he is doing ridiculous things. When you look at, obviously, MVP, it's a silly award that I don't like to countenance, but when you start talking about the situation a player is in and how they are succeeding in the face of said situation, everyone likes to look at the sort of backups and the passing talent, whatever. Deshaun Watson is doing this with Nuke Hopkins and a set of traffic cones in front of him.
Yeah.
Like there's 4, 5, 6, however many pass rushers coming at him, right? The only thing stopping them from hitting him and killing him is 5 oversized police traffic cones stood in front of him. The ball gets snapped, and he has 1.5 seconds to make something else happen or he dies. And he's doing that every single play of the game. 70 times in a game, he is being told to get the ball out of his hands or evade pass rushes when all they have to do is navigate.
He's still bringing some of the pressure on himself.
When all they have to do is to navigate 5 large traffic cones.
And so we talked about Foles' high variance. Mm-hmm. So Watson's overall PFF grade isn't in the elite range because he's had 2 of the worst games we've seen from quarterbacks this year. Against Buffalo back in Week 6 and against Washington back in Week 11. Very much fumble-driven, bad decision-driven. But he's also had elite games against Indianapolis. I'm just looking at blue. Indianapolis, Miami, Tennessee, yesterday against Philadelphia. So his high-end play is as good as any quarterback in the league. That includes Mahomes. That includes Breeze. That includes everybody at the top, which means they're going to have to probably win 4 games now. But you talk about playoff runs. Watson has it in him.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings me to the AFC right now. Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, Deshaun Watson in Houston, Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. You've got Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, who's played like a top 3 to 5 quarterback this year as well. Tom Brady in New England. The next 10 years in the AFC look really, really good, especially if you keep Brady in that mix.
They do. I mean, I'm amazed that Deshaun Watson doesn't have more of those stinking games where everything just goes to hell because of the situation.
Because of everything around him, yeah.
Like the Texans have, at the moment, they have the 3rd worst team in terms of offensive line pass blocking efficiency, ahead of only the Dolphins and the Cardinals. The Cardinals, by the way, have a historically bad pass blocking unit.
Oh, they're bad. They are horrendous.
Like, I don't remember seeing a pass blocking efficiency below that point since we've been looking at it. The Texans are just like bad on a general scale. They're bad. Every given year they'd be bad, but the Cardinals are like off the end of the scale bad ever. Like that, it's a completely different level. But I'm amazed that doesn't manifest itself in more games where Deshaun Watson just has a nightmare trying to do it all himself. Like the percentage.
Only 2 real disastrous games.
The percentage in which he's managed to turn that into something amazing versus something horrendous is remarkable.
Yeah, so I think the future of the AFC at the quarterback position, very, very bright. And so the Texans, they lost.
They did.
So they are currently in line for the number 3 seed instead of the number 2 seed. New England beats Buffalo to now move up to the number 2 seed. If New England beats the Jets, they will get the number 2 seed. If Kansas City wins against Oakland, they get the number 1 seed. Technically, there's still a chance for the Chargers to get the number 1 seed. If Kansas City, I'm not expecting Kansas City to lose to Oakland, right?
No.
We're not expecting that at all.
We're not.
And if the Jets beat the Patriots, the Texans could beat the Jags and get the number 2 seed. So that's what we're looking at next week. We'll break it down later in the week. We'll go through all the scenarios with everybody.